Hey guys, it's Maria Park and welcome to Approach the Nerd. And in this episode, we are doing a quick review of Loki episode 4. I literally just finished watching it. And yeah, I'm loving the progression of this series. Even though it's only 6 episodes and we only have 2 episodes left, a lot has happened. I also have a lot of questions. So we finally have Ravonna Renslayer, our Judge Renslayer, showing her true colors as being very much in the know of what's going on at the TVA. Now, in the comics, you know that her character is actually the daughter of King Cerilius. So he is basically kind of like the middleman or like the spank man of King the Conqueror, who we know is coming into the MCU. So I know that there's definitely going to be a connection with King the Conqueror. Now, with the Timekeepers in the comics, it's interesting because the Timekeepers are not like this omnipotent group of people that we see in Loki episode 4. They were basically, as you see how they were made to be androids in this episode, they were just puppets. You know, they were created by He Who Remains, which means since they've now said, well, who created the Timekeepers? More than likely, He Who Remains, who was basically the former TVA director, is going to be put into this episode, which I'm excited about. But there was also a connection between the Timekeepers and Nathaniel Richards when he was Immortus before, the whole King the Conqueror, Immortus, Nathaniel Richards thing is just literally a time loop anomaly all in itself. Trying to cure yourself. It's always been like the closest Doctor Who reference I've ever had in the comics was this character. So I really enjoy Nathaniel Richards. And so I do think that this is another cue into his character because, again, we do know that he is coming into the MCU. So yeah, I think a lot of this is all connected. As we know, all of the MCU movies and TV shows are connected. So I'm for that. But some things happened in this episode that I thought were very interesting. Loki is being made into a lovesick puppy for Sylvie. So that it starts off, they're basically still on the moon. It's getting ready to be destroyed. And then, of course, Mobius is trying to track them, looking at different anomalies, trying to find, something to help them. Any kind of disturbance in the sacred timeline. They do see one variant, and that is when they hold hands and they create this really intertwined, variant, and they're able to track them and, of course, bring them back to the TVA where they're separated by Ravonna because she is extremely sensitive to any information getting out from the Sylvie Loki variant. And we do see a flashback of what happened when Sylvie was little. She was sitting in her timeline's Asgard, and Ravonna herself is one of the ones that comes and gets her and basically, resets her timeline, erasing her from existence for being a Loki variant. And we don't know exactly what she was going to do or what she's supposedly, what catastrophe will befall the timeline had she been allowed to continue to exist, because she was a little girl when they grabbed her. And even in the episode when they're facing Ravonna in this, that's one of the questions that Sylvie says. What was it that I did that made you come and basically destroy my entire life and make me a non-concept? And, Ravonna is kind of smugly, smirked and said, I don't remember. And I'm like, oh, you're such a bitch. But again, in the comics, Ravonna is from the 40th or 41st century. And this version is probably still true because she seems to be one of the ones that knows what's actually happening here. So this is why I think that there's a connection to Immortus. But again, I digress. She's shady. So long story short, though, they've definitely taken Loki on this emotional journey. We got to see Lady Siff, which we have not seen Lady Siff since her cameo appearance in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I am happy that Lady Siff was brought back into this. I'm hoping we see her again. And well, I didn't check the cast list to see if she was going to be in Thor. I don't think she is in the new Thor movie, actually. I don't know. I don't know what they do with Lady Siff. Lady Siff seems to be an anomaly. She comes and goes, even though she was a major player in the comics. But I was really happy to see Lady Siff, even if it was just to torture Loki in a memory. I really loved having her in this episode. I'm hoping that they have some use for her, in more in the MCU, especially in Secret Invasion. I would love to see Lady Siff in Secret Invasion. That would be awesome. But again, I don't know. I digress. So I thought it was interesting that people, they're so brainwashed. Like even Mobius was so brainwashed into the TVA creating them that they didn't want to believe Loki, even though technically Loki did kind of start off after he was captured lying. He basically tried to take all of the credit and make, Sylvie a minion and like somebody he needed to dispose of once his master plan is unfolded, and of course, Mobius wasn't buying any of that crap. And so that's when he, kind of, offered to send him back in there to be, beaten up again by Lady Siff. And, when Loki finally says, no, actually you're being lied to, the TVA, you're all variants. And, for a minute you can see Mobius thinking, that kind of makes sense. But then he's like, you're lying. And he throws him back into the pocket Siff world. That's what I'm calling it, to be tortured. And then he goes and sees Ravonna and they have this whole conversation. And, he kind of swaps out their TVA things and he sees a video of what happened to a Hunter. I think it was Hunter 15. She was the Hunter that the last one that Sylvie was able to use her Enchantress powers, because I'm still going to call her Enchantress, on. And the one that she actually realized she was real. She was taken from her life and the TVA is not real and nothing is real. It's an anomaly. Ravonna told Mobius that she was killed because her brain shut down from being enchanted. But in reality, she just didn't want, it to get out. So when he took Ravonna's tempad and saw that video, that's when Mobius was like, okay, wait a minute, this is real. So of course he went to free, Loki. And he basically said, I love what he said. He's like, by the way, you have a choice on what you want to be. You can choose to be good, in case no one ever told you that. And I'm like, yeah, trust me, they told him that. But I love that Mobius got to have that moment, because right after that, he was pretty much put down. But I already figured out you're not killed when they get rid of you. Like, they don't. As soon as we saw this with Loki, because Loki actually gets when they go meet the Timekeepers and they're fighting, and Ravonna gets knocked down, not killed, not whatever, just gets knocked down. And of course she decides to use her wonderful stick of horror on Loki, essentially killing him. And then Sylvie attacks her and says, you're going to tell me everything, because basically the Timekeepers have they're androids basically. Loki, at the end of the episode, you see him with other Loki variants. There's even a crocodile one, which I don't remember in the comics. I don't remember these variants, but that's fine. Like I said, you can't remember everything in comic books. But Loki is basically, when he wakes up, he's basically saying, if you want to live, basically come with us. And it's a bunch of Loki variants. And I just think that it's so fitting for Loki. Of course it would be an acid trip. I love it. I absolutely love it. They look like they're in New York, basically back where Loki started from. So maybe that's what happens when you're pretty much, your whole body's reset. Maybe you're reset back to your original timeline if you're killed. Which means Mobius could be on some jet skis right now somewhere. There's so many things that could be happening in this, but I really enjoy this episode. It's completely on crack, and pruning people seems to be, it just really feels like, I feel like the term prune, if we look at a prune, it starts off as a grape, right? Or a raisin, whatever. Like, raisins and prunes pretty much are the dehydrated versions of a grape. So really, if you're pruning someone, then maybe you're aging them to the point of going back to where they initially came from. Maybe they're resetted back to their origin, is what I'm saying. So maybe the pruning process for them works kind of in reverse. I don't know. I just think it's interesting that they call it pruning. So that's what I think. I think Mobius, once they're pruned, maybe they don't remember being in TVA, and so they go back to their original lives. We saw that with Hunter. I think it's Hunter 20. She's the one that we initially saw in the very first episode, the one that first not Loki out, the one that, the same person that Loki was able to steal her tempad and freeze her and do all kinds of stuff to her. When basically her body was taken over by Sylvie, she was able to remember something, and it stuck with her. And I knew something was up, because in this episode, when Mobius was trying to interview Sylvie, and of course Ravonna wouldn't let him, the Hunter 20 said, well, did the variant say anything to you? And he's like, no. She's like, well, I'm just doing my job. But you could tell that there was something up with her. And then later, she's the one that goes and gets Sylvie and takes her back to, the mall area where they're about to have the hurricane, basically another, basically end of the world event for them at least, and says, what happened? I saw things when you touched me. And so she had Sylvie touch her again. And then she remembered her life. She said, I looked happy. So that means that Timekeepers were grabbing happy people with nothing wrong with them. These weren't lonely people. These weren't suicidal people. These were people who had actual lives and took them from probably their families. Of course, we know their friends, and just pull them into this organization and tell them, we created you. And now you get to go hunt variants, even though they essentially are variants themselves. That is so messed up. That is so messed up. It's such a thing. And like initially when this series started, we started talking about the Timekeepers, I originally thought, and I think I said this in other reviews of this series, I thought we were dealing with the Time Twisters, because the Time Twisters were pretty much the Bizarro of Superman, basically, to the Marvel universe of Timekeepers. They didn't do anything right. They messed everything up. They were just crazy. And the Timekeepers came later. So the Timekeepers were not the prototype. The Time Twisters were. And there are actually more than 3. I think there were 4 or 5 in the comics. But yeah, I thought we were going that route. But now we're doing, it's anybody's game at this point, instead of actually having these beings that are like puppets. That were created by He Who Remains, they're actually android who potentially could still be created by He Who Remains, but more than likely are they're constructs of Immortus. So maybe we're seeing Immortus right now. Maybe that's how Nathaniel Richards is coming into the MCU first as Immortus. I don't know, but I would absolutely be down with that. I like any of the timelines of Nathaniel Richards, so it's completely okay with me. And then I'd love to see if we have like an ancient, Egyptian connection, because, a lot of the Timekeepers were from Egypt, so or actually spawned from Egypt. There's a lot going on with the Timekeepers. There's so many theories I have about this. But again, having the Timekeepers being created by He Who Remains, and then also Jane Foster, who is going to be, of course, Lady Thor, also had a hand in helping out with the Time Twisters with He Who Remains in the comics too, because it's a whole connective issue. So I know this world is tied in, obviously, with Asgard. Obviously, is going to be tied in, with God, Love, and Thunder. Obviously, is going to be tied in with, King, or at least Nathaniel Richards. All of it is tied in. The only thing I didn't expect was seeing Lady Siff in this episode, because again, for me, that was a highlight, because I've always thought that she was so shafted by the MCU, and it's good to see her back, and it's good to see, or at least give me hope that we may be seeing her in other series. I'm hoping she's in other series, but I'm not trying to get my hopes up. But again, we have not seen her since her cameo or her guest spot in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I think that was like season 3, may have been earlier, I don't know, but and now we're learning that that's not even a canon series. That Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., according to Kevin Feige, it's not even part of the MCU continuity. So yeah, Lady Siff, I am extremely happy she is back. So let's see. This has been the best episode so far in this season. I agree. There's so much happening, but for me, right before Loki was pruned, he was like, I'm new to this. I don't know what I'm doing. And he was like literally trying to tell her that he likes her, and then he gets pruned. And I was like, And I love when Mobius was like, you fell in love with another variant of yourself. What a narcissist. I'm like, it's absolutely hilarious. He's hilarious to me. I love Mobius. I really like this episode. Yep, it was really good. May he ride his jet ski until the great beyond. I don't think he's dead. I don't think that's what I think. What happened with Loki is exactly what happens with everybody that's pruned. They go back to where they initially came from. It seems like a one-way trip home is what it seems like when you're pruned. It was a great episode. Yes, it was. The devilish legion of Lokis. That is awesome. I'm excited. I want to know if the crocodile Loki talks. That would be pretty cool. Does anyone know who the Black Thor looking guy is? He's another variant of Loki. If you're talking about at the very end, when you see them together, that one, let me see. I'm trying to see if I actually, because I know Richard E. Grant was there. I want to say that I do know who that is, but do not quote me on that. I'm looking up the cast list now. All right, his name is Diobio Pari. I'm probably butchering it. He was Gunner in Pirates of the Caribbean. And he has a very good birthday. He was born December 7th and I'm December 8th. So he's a Sagittarius. Can't go wrong. He's also, it looks like he was in Game of Thrones too. I don't know who he played because I have not watched, don't kill me. I have not watched Game of Thrones. So I'm not sure who his character was, but apparently he was in it. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm excited for what he does in episode 5. I'm actually surprised that we got Amy Alexander as Lady Siff in the show. I know. I thought she was done. I don't know. I just don't know what it is about this in the first place. So, hey, Maria, not seen you in a couple of days. Hi, Ryan. Yeah, it's been a minute. Did anybody else notice that baby Sylvie is little Judith from Walking Dead? Huh. Did not notice that. That's awesome. Hi, Chastin. How are you? So there is no Timekeepers. See, that's the thing with the MCU. I say this a lot with DC properties, with the Arrowverse. MCU is its own universe, which takes lightly from the comics, but that's its own poop. So this really could be a universe where there are no Timekeepers. That means we may not have He Who Remains. I don't know. We don't know who we don't know in the MCU. So until they are introduced into the continuity, we have no effing clue. I do know that it's just interesting that I know that we have Nathaniel Richards coming into the MCU. I'm pretty sure through Guardians of the Galaxy, if I remember correctly. I have to go back and check that because I'm not sure. And I do know that, it will lead to King the Conqueror. Again, I still think if anything, this is an Immortus thing, even though technically they work together and he didn't create them. He had a connection to them, as did Jane Foster. So, all of it's connected, considering we are having the Thor Love and Thunder movie with Jane Foster as Lady Thor. And then we have, of course, Nathaniel Richards coming in through the MCU as well. It would make sense that the Timekeeper storyline would be in there somewhere, but they've always been puppets in the comics. They were not, like, whenever they referred to the Timekeepers as these powerful, basically godlike beings. And I'm like, no, that's not what happened. I'm like, but let's talk about the Nexus Bridge. Of course, we're going to have a connection to that because we have Wanda. Wanda's a Nexus being. So, all they're really doing is opening up the Nexus, universe, which I keep throwing around Mephisto because they keep giving us Easter eggs from Mephisto, which is really irritating. But if Mephisto is introduced at any point in the MCU, then I know what they're doing. And I'm waiting to see if I have more evidence before I open my mouth, but I have a theory of what's happening. And I think that it would be really bad, if it's true. So, but yeah, I digress. I'd always said since episode 1 that nothing's better not happen to Mobius or I will be mad. The fear has now come true. Now we have to make sure that we understand the pruning process. I don't think pruning is death. I think pruning is relocation. Pruning he may be very happy on his jet ski with no memory of ever being in the TVA, which would be absolutely torture for Loki because Loki finally kind of made a little bit of a friend and he'll finally find Mobius and Mobius won't even remember him. And I bet you that's what's going to happen. And he's not, Sylvie won't stay with him or can't stay with him. And then the one friend he made, he probably won't remember him. That could be a possibility. And that is really sad because, again, Loki is destined to stay alone or be alone. We're all the Timekeepers if we have watches. Mercenary, I told you. I'm still recovering from the Batwoman finale. I think they squashed so much in one episode and we didn't even get to know how Kate survived. Ryan, I'm in my feelings about that finale of Batwoman, and I'm in my feelings about a lot of things about Batwoman. And I'm just not happy. I am happy with Batwing, kind of the 5 seconds we got of him. But outside of that, I'm just not happy with that series. I wanted a flashback of Kate's experience. That would have been nice. Mobius will return. Absolutely. But again, I kind of feel like the trade-off will be he won't be able to remember. Maybe they'll let him come in and help. And then when he chooses to go, that might be what happens. They'll find Mobius. He helps take down the TVA for good. Find out who's behind everything, and then he chooses to go back to his old life. And by doing that, he's choosing to erase all his memories again of all his time with the TVA, going back to his simple time of loving his jet skis. And that's pretty much what's more than likely going to happen with everybody at the TVA, which is sad. So they won't have connections with each other. I hope we find out about Mobius's life before the TVA. I think we're going to see it. I really do. I really feel like we're going to see Mobius's life. What time are you doing the DC stream? So I'm working on that now. I was supposed to have a doctor appointment or a test, an exam around 1 p.m. My time is 2:39, but they canceled. So I don't have to do that. So I'm trying to play catch up. I just need to finish watching Legends of Tomorrow. So I'm thinking around 6 p.m. my time, Central Standard Time. So be on the lookout on the community board. I will pop up the stream, like basically time and invite whatever or information on the community board. It's a lot easier. In the promos, Mobius is driving a van towards an Egyptian tomb. Yes, I saw that actually. And that's why I think there's a good tie-in with that, because there's actually are 5 timekeepers, but they always stress the 4th one was ancient Egyptian. And like I said, he who remains could be in Egypt. So that's if we're even doing the comic route. I have no idea what we're doing. This could be something completely unrelated, because MCU likes to throw House of Bone, bones at you, likes to throw like just various little Easter eggs where you get your hopes up that you're seeing something, but you're actually not. Case in point, on episode 1 at the end of WandaVision, where we saw AIM. They dress like they're in B, gear. They are, technological hackers and technology, for hire terrorists. And we have this guy going through the town in a bee suit, but then they changed it so that it only became him wearing a bee suit because he went through the barrier. But we know that as AIM in the comics. So it's like they take a comic book thing and then they morph it into something that fits into the MCU version of the property. So he may be in Egypt for a completely different reason, but if he's in it for comic book reasons, then I know why he's doing it. And so, yeah, I think we need to have more Runslayer's backstory, because again, she is technically a princess, technically from the 40th century, very badass, a prodigy with weapons, very skilled fighter, and a little bit crazy. So I would love to see that. I love Sylvie's backstory. I did too. I still think it's interesting they actually took a Loki variant and made her concept design based off of Sylvie Enchantress from the comics. So, and they do that a lot. And I don't know why, but that's the MCU for you. I guess they figure we can't put him in. We can put like the essence of the character in. Are you 5 hours ahead? It's 2040 here. I may set for your Arrowverse stream. It is currently 2:42 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm Central Standard Time. I didn't even know Legends of Tomorrow was still on. Thanks for letting me know. It is. And this season's been very good. If you're a Sarah and Ava lover, you will love, especially the last episode. You will love the last episode, last week's. But yeah, it's cool. I can't wait to see Black Widow's movie. Yeah, I'm thinking about seeing it at the drive-in. I am trying to see. I mean, I have HBO Max. I have Disney Plus. I just don't know if I want to pay $20 to see it or $30 to see it streaming at home. Well, it's cheaper to go see it at the drive-in. I don't know. I got to think about it. Based off what Sylvie had said, I believe that she's a miracle baby. She could be. Again, I still, for some reason, believe that she is the Enchantress, because technically, if she is a variant and they're like, I don't remember why we were erasing you, it would make sense that she still has the same comic line. Because remember, Sylvie was created by a Loki, and he did it to see if he could convince a normal person that they were an Asgardian, and he gave her pretty much Loki abilities and set her on this whole life that wasn't real. And so Sylvie could be the product of that, and could be Enchantress. And she doesn't take the Enchantress name immediately. So, I mean, I just think that that's something that could happen. Are cinemas open in the US? Yes, they are. But I still think COVID is a very big threat. So I don't go to them. I will go to the drive-in and sit in my car away from people. And besides, the drive-in here is nice. So it's fine. Lot cheaper. I can bring my own snacks. I don't have to worry about people kicking the back of my seat outside of my daughter and my dog, who I can just launch out the back of the car. It is a beautiful experience. Can you explain what happened with the timeline branching? All just because they were holding hands? Well, and see, that's the thing. There's two possibilities, two variants of Loki touching each other when they're not from the same timeline. Technically, it cause a ripple effect, mixed with the fact that they're both into each other. That's what he was saying. The narcissism that he said Loki has actually translates to Loki has a crush. Loki has a crush on a female version of himself. And so because he has these intense feelings for her and it looks like she has them back, it caused a massive ripple effect in the timeline because they're not supposed to exist in the same timeline. So it's a thing. And then let's be clear, MCU timeline rules never made sense to me. They didn't make sense to me in Endgame. They don't make sense to me now. They don't make sense because in retrospect, you shouldn't have problems with variants if you basically can do whatever the hell you want, as Captain America said, and just create a different timeline. So like you make this choice and the opposite choice is automatically created. I don't actually know why. So yeah. Only 2 episodes left. I know this is going by so fast. I feel like Loki just went like this. Like Falcon and Winter Soldier, it took so long to get to the episode. I feel like Loki's just jumping from one to another to the other. It's crazy to me. I don't know. It's just really weird how fast this series is going by. But I'm enjoying it. Like I said, Loki is very interesting. The cast itself is amazing. And I love that we get to see all these different, technically, I like to think of it as futuristic steampunk technology because that's how it looks to me. If you were a big fan of Sci-Fi Channel's Warehouse 13, then that's the type of genre also that I'm really into, that whole steampunk look. So I love that that's what the TVA has. They're this futuristic, technological organization that still uses file cabinets, and they use different modified devices from like the 40s and 50s, but with like futuristic tech built inside of it. It's just really, really cool to me. And that's exactly what Warehouse 13 was like. If you have not seen Warehouse 13, you should check it out. It might be on Prime or on Netflix. It was very, very good. Drive-ins are better. Yes, I agree with that. Just finished Motherland. Lots of questions. Also, Gregorio is Gil Bobby. Took me a minute to realize. Yeah, I said that in my stream. It is definitely him. Considering they are born from the same parents, is that considered incest? Not. You mean the Lokis? No, because they're not from the same timeline or universe. Technically, Clark Kent could literally get with Clark Kent from another Earth because they would not have any biological connection or DNA whatsoever. They're not related. They just look alike. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had basically the same rules. The approach was different, but the rules aren't. It just doesn't make sense. It just kind of changes based on what I guess the episode needs. It's really weird. Second MCU show with a love story that causes a Nexus event. There's a lot of Nexus events. Like I said, we're dealing with the Nexus Bridge. It's going to be amazing. If Supergirl is born in the 60s but grew up in the 2000s but is old enough to have been born in the 90s, late 80s, is she a boomer, millennial, or Gen Z? There are tough questions that need answers. That is a good question. I don't ever put any generational label on a comic book character because they've been 30 and 20 for 60 years. So, I literally was 5 or 6 when I first started reading Superman and Spider-Man. And now I'm in my 40s and now I'm older than Peter Parker and Clark Kent. So I'm just saying I can't go by those rules because they don't age. They just don't age. And then 1 or 2 episodes that they do age in comics or issues, they completely retcon it anyway. So it's a thing. Why have the TVA not caught Wanda? That is a very good question. One of my theories is because they can't. Plus her Nexus abilities actually came more into scope in WandaVision, which may be happening simultaneously or could be happening after Loki's series. Just because they're playing it in this order doesn't mean the timing happened in this order. Just like I'm convinced that Falcon and Winter Soldier did not happen until after WandaVision, because of course Sam would have noticed that was one of his former Avenger teammates. So it's a thing. It's a thing. Thumbs up, yeah, thumbs up. I meant the Supergirl in the show. No, even in the show, I don't know. I don't know what we would officially call her, which would be considered a millennial. Which technically, I guess she could be considered a millennial, but I don't know by what rules we're going by because she's not her actual age. So it gets confusing when you're talking about ages. When you talk about the year, it goes by the year you're born, and she wasn't even born on Earth. So she's a Kryptonial. That's what she is, a Kryptonial. That's what we're gonna call her, Kryptonial. But yes, so all in all, I really, really enjoyed this episode. Like I said, I have lots of theories about what is happening. I will say episode 5 is going to be very telling. I am super excited about the other Loki variants teaming up with Loki. Because I knew the one time we had a scene after the credits, because normally, they didn't have anything. They finally had a scene after the credits, which is a good thing, because we would have been in our feelings an entire week wondering what happened to Loki. But now that I see that pruning does not necessarily kill you, it's kind of opening my brain up to the possibility that everybody that has ever been pruned more than likely went back to their point of origin, because it really looks like Loki's back in New York. And I don't know why the other variants are there, but it looks like he's back in New York. And unless they were pulled from that time or that part of New York, and they just all dumped them in the same timeline of New York at the same time, parallel. But that gives me hope that Mobius is absolutely not dead, that he's either where they are or he is back where he originally came from. That's what I think. Just like Hunter, the Hunter 15 may not be dead. She may be pruned back to her previous life with no memory or recollection of ever having been, with the TVA, which is crazy. This episode was revealing. It was, what if Kang created the TVA? That's what I was thinking. Kang, and more likely it was when he was Immortus. Because that's when Immortus is the one that had the real connection in the comics with the Timekeepers. So same person, Nathaniel Richards, but it's not Kang. It would be his Immortus alias. But even still, it's Nathaniel. So, I mean, I think it's a good way of bringing Nathaniel in. But we know in the comics, He Who Remains, who was the original director and creator of the TVA, was the one who initially made the Timekeepers. They never mentioned the old director. I don't think they've name dropped. I'll have to go back. I don't think we've ever heard of the previous director, but it could have been something said very quickly and I missed it. But it's a thing. It is a thing. So I'm curious where they're going, but we have 2 episodes left, so we're not gonna have to wait long. And I think episode 5 is going to be the cursor. It's gonna be the episode that we're just like, what? And then 6 is the resolution. 5 is gonna be the good one. I think 5 is the one everyone's gonna be talking about, and 6 is either gonna be really good or a big letdown. It just really depends on how they do it, because there were a lot of people that were not happy with how WandaVision ended with Agatha. So they could be disappointed in episode 6. I choose to believe we're going to think it's amazing. I choose to believe that, but I know for certain that 5 is definitely going to be good, because the episode before the end of MCU shows are always extremely good. So I am excited for next Wednesday. I am extremely excited for next Wednesday. But yeah, that is my review. Again, I will be setting the Arrowverse review for our Arrowverse Wednesday review for probably, is more than likely it'll be 6 p.m. my time. If I have to move to 7, you'll see it on the community board. I have to finish watching Legends of Tomorrow. And then I have a call that I have to do. And then I should be able to do my stream. I'm also going to be working on the Republic of Sarah video. So that's going to be a video. That's not going to be a live stream. So that's going to be coming out either tonight or tomorrow morning. Hopefully tonight, though. But yeah, so I'm going to have all that done. So make sure that you stay tuned for our Arrowverse Wednesday. I am going to put a picture of Batwoman up. I'm not necessarily 100% recapping the episode, because I've already done a review, but I'm putting her up there because I know people are going to talk about Batwoman in this review, even though it's about The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. So we can get all those feelings out about what we felt about the season finale of season 2 of Batwoman. So we will talk about that too. So, and I do have some things to say about Batwoman and why I have a problem with the writing behind Ryan's character and the writing behind what happened in general as a whole. And this is a writer's problem, not an actress, not a character, a writing problem for me. So I will definitely address that. But we also do need to talk about The Flash, and we do need to talk about Legends of Tomorrow. So I am going to start with those 2, and then we will finish with Batwoman. And then we'll end it, because I know if we start with Batwoman, we will not get to the other ones. So just putting it in perspective that's what we're doing in our Arrowverse Wednesday show. So, be on the lookout. Check the community board and you'll see the time and invite for that stream in a little while. All right, guys. It will be, let's see if I think it's daytime for some of you, probably Ryan, or late in the evening. So if it is, then have a very good evening or have a very good day. And I will see you in a little bit for our next stream.